The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello friends, thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week we'll review Austin's 2-1 loss in Frisco. We will preview the upcoming US Open Cup semifinal in Minnesota and the weekend's league match at home versus Seattle. My name is Landon Cottom, and I'm joined as always by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey everybody, I'm Jeremiah Bentley, and it feels weird to be spending my lunch break on a Monday with you, Landon, but here we are. You've got a busy day today, so obviously the show will come out sort of after tonight's festivities take place, but we'll probably talk about it next week. So just for one more reminder, can you remind folks what you're doing here for the rest of the day?
Yeah, I'm not sure when I'll be able to edit this. There's a chance this comes out before this event, but most likely when you're listening to this has already happened. But Monday night, I'll be at Hop Squad taking part in a live podcast recording with Chris Moser from Progress, Texas, and our guest of honor, Brad Stuver. We're going to be talking about Brad's advocacy work off the field mostly, but tying it back into soccer some as well. So probably going to be a lot of politics-minded folks there, but hopefully some soccer folks as well. So looking forward to that. But yeah, that is why we're recording on a strange schedule. I will edit this whenever I get a chance to. Maybe it comes out on Monday. Maybe it comes out normally on Tuesday morning. But if any late breaking news happens Monday afternoon, we'll talk about it next week.
That's right. Although this doesn't seem to be a very newsy window, right? We were just kind of looking back through what happened this week, and there was not a lot going on. So we don't expect it. It is weird to be, just for anybody that I might work with, I do just have a glass of water here and not my usual glass of vodka. Just want to point that out before we get into the rest of the show.
All right, let's get into the story of the week here, Jeremiah. Where should we start?
I think we can start with just this Austin's chance, again, to have a third straight victory. Austin has put together a pretty good run of form over the last couple months, but that just did not come to bear. So it's really just, I feel like a failure all the way around. I think especially, it's this common notion we talk about the goals changing games. The first goal coming 2 minutes into the match or something, like before I even got sat down, like with a bowl of popcorn to watch the match, Austin was already behind and on the back foot.
Yeah, I am almost hesitant to credit this with the moniker of goals change games, because I feel like that goal was just an indicator of how that game was going to go anyway.
Yeah.
But it certainly didn't help. Whatever mentality Austin stepped onto the field, it seemed to already be there before the goal happened. And then that goal cemented how that game was going to go. But I think that's going to be a theme as we go through some of the match events, and some of our thoughts afterwards is intensity and focus. And those things were just not there on this night.
Yeah. And when we get to the post-match stuff, I mean, I guess the good thing is the coach and any player that talked seemed to own it. But one has to have questions about how you get into this situation with a thing that they had prepared for the way that Dallas was going to line up, and they just came out with no energy. And this reminds me of something from the press conference last week, like, people talking about there being urgency into the run into the end of the season, and Roto talking about that, like, not being acceptable, that every game should be important and you should be fired up all the time and not just wait to turn it on until when it matters. So I can imagine he was probably somewhat disgruntled by the performance on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think if you look at some of the context around this game, so we have a few players coming back from international duty. Uzuni ends up not starting. Dessler was questionable. He doesn't even make the trip. Danny comes back from international duty. And then I was able to catch we're recording this right after this recording came out, but of the Monday media availability for this week, Heinz Eich was talking about kind of the psychological aspect of playing this game right before this Open Cup game, and saying, like, it's natural that, yeah, I think some of the guys' heads, or maybe a lot of our heads, were already looking ahead to Wednesday. Like, Estevez can tell him all he wants. You can try to amp yourself up as much as you want, but they all know they're like, this isn't the big one this week. Wednesday is.
Yeah, and this is one where once that goal happens, and especially when the second goal happens, because Austin did rally from behind against a not great Western Conference team on the road in the previous week, but it never felt like that was something that was in the cards on Saturday night.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the wonderful city of Frisco, Texas. It was not a great experience, Jeremiah. I know you've been there before. You weren't there on this one, but Frisco itself is essentially just like a few strip malls, it seems, and professional sports facilities. And then half the stadium's under construction. I'm going to take this opportunity to go
all caps on Frisco and Toyota Stadium.
And I don't have my soundboard's not up and running right now, so I'll try to remember to add the effect in post. But so we have to go to Frisco. That's the start of it. So already negative points on the trip. Get into the stadium. It's half under construction, which kudos for them for upgrading their stadium because it's not a very good stadium. They're trying to make it better. We get in. We did not ride the bus. And so it seems like they pulled the bus up to some back entrance, walked them through an entrance that is not an entrance, and they all went into the stadium that way. We drove ourselves. It was my parents, my brother, and his 3-year-old son. And we just walked into a normal gate, walked through the concourse. It was fine. We walked into the Austin section. What we didn't realize is once we walked in there, we would not be allowed to leave again. And so we walked past all these concession stands, all these options for food and stuff. I was like, oh, let's go get settled. And then we'll come back and kind of look at the options. And we get up there and are then unallowed to leave. There's one little concession stand for us to get food and drinks at. And then there were no water fountains in the area. Someone said they went and asked about a water fountain and said, oh, there's a water fountain just on the other side of the security stand. Can we go use that one? And they were told, actually, that one hasn't worked in months, so you can't use that one.
Oh,
no. After the game, I went right at the whistle to go to the bathroom before we were going to leave. And the first thing that happened as soon as I got to the top of the stairs is a cop started yelling at me for trying to go into the bathroom. And I was like, whoa, what's going on, man? And he was like, we told y'all no bathrooms, no bathrooms. And I was like, I wasn't told anything. And apparently the people who rode the bus were told, like, if you need to use the bathroom, do it before the whistle, because as soon as the whistle blows, we're going to walk you through this door and you're going to get on the bus. I wasn't privy to that information. So instead, a cop just yelled at me for walking up some stairs. And then there were 3 Frisco fans ejected from the stadium in the immediate vicinity around our section. One of them being a small child who threw something at Brad Stuver as he was leaving the field at halftime.
Oh my gosh. That is quite an experience. Kind of reinforces everything that I think about that city. So is your brother like a fan of the sport? Or because I feel like if he wasn't, this is not the game to introduce somebody who's like a casual to. I feel like that would reinforce all of the worst stereotypes that people have about soccer.
He is not really a soccer fan. He's like, he knows we're really into it, and so he was like excited to go see it. But yeah, definitely not the best advertisement for him watching more soccer.
Yeah. And then it just continues this like frustrating run of not getting results away. And I think just on the face of, if you look at the table and where Austin is and the games left, like, sure, it's fine. We're probably going to finish 6th or 7th, but you couple this with like the losses against Houston, the fact that still one draw in the history of this series. I believe that Austin's gotten in Frisco is like the best performance. So they just don't seem to be able to get up for this performance in any kind of way. And I think that it seemed like the traveling crowd was a little bit smaller. It's 11,000 people in the stands, even with half a stadium capacity. It looks like it wasn't totally full. So
yeah, not a huge
kind of
crowd.
a bad night.
And I do think for like, in defense of Austin's traveling fans, I think there's a big group going to Minnesota midweek, which probably took away some of the folks who would have done this trip and chose not to because they're going to Minnesota instead.
No, that's very fair. And then I guess the last part, so how much does it matter? I kind of touched on this. Austin slips to 7th, 2 points ahead of Colorado, still has a game in hand to stay out of that 8-9 match in the opener. There's only 5 to go, but the schedule's not like a pushover schedule. Because there's still Seattle, there's still the LAFC, Sporting KC at home, which is the next week's match, is probably the biggest opportunity to pick up some points, but definitely not a pushover schedule ahead. And so if Austin is to stay where they are, there's also the possibility of 4 more Minnesota United matches left between the two? Because I think if the season ended today, that was who Austin would play in the first round of the playoffs.
Oh yeah. It's this game doesn't have a huge effect. I'm hoping it doesn't have a big psychological effect, because you said we're 2 points ahead of Colorado. We are still 7 points ahead of RSL, who is in that number 10 slot. And so even just a few points for the rest of the season probably keeps us at least in the wild card game. But just last week, we were talking about how close we were in touching distance to the teams just ahead of us. I would rather the boys be thinking of that side and not thinking like, oh, we can relax because statistically we're probably going to make the playoffs. I'd rather them saying, hey, let's push for more. Let's see if we can push into 5th place, maybe even 4th place if a bunch of things break our way and we do really, really well. So they didn't go into the game with that mentality. Good news is it will, fingers crossed, knock on wood, likely not affect their playoff chances, but it could. And they can't go into games thinking that, oh, we've got it. We can just hang out now.
Right. And that seems like this club is historically very bad down the stretch, because it seems to either think they've got it now or just kind of sort of given up on the year. So, like, let's hope that we don't get another one of those. I think we can go ahead and take a break and get into the match itself.
Yeah, let's do it. Hang tight. We'll be right back.
When no one is around.
Mutar Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FEF Law, the official injury lawyers of Austin FC.
FEF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education. And they have their own podcast called Summary Judgment that you can check out wherever you get your podcasts.
You can go to FEF.law to find out what makes FEF a different kind of injury law firm and why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's FEF.law. Amplify Credit Union is a member-owned financial cooperative that served the needs of Central Texans for over 5 decades. As a credit union, Amplify has no shareholders or parent companies. That means more of your money stays in the community.
Amplify has been the home of fee-free banking since 2022. Their free checking accounts come with 0 overdraft fees or minimum balances. That means Amplify's fee-free checking accounts help you get more mileage from your everyday spending.
Amplify membership is open to any Texas resident. Learn to trust your bank again at Amplify Credit Union. To learn more and to register for free parking at the Amplify Esperanza branch on game days, go to www.goamplify.com/mutower-soccer. All right, we are back. We are going to run through this FC Dallas match. We don't like to linger too long on rough losses like this, and luckily I don't think we have to, because there's not a lot to talk about really. So we'll get through this one and cover the essentials, give our overall thoughts, but then we'll move on to previewing the other 2 games this week. But let's get started on this Dallas match, Jeremiah.
Okay, let's do it. We kind of talked about this early on already, but so the pregame, there becomes questions about prioritizing this match or the cup. It feels like in terms of for the most part, in terms of like players, if a guy's healthy and you start him this week on Saturday, you could probably start him again Wednesday. I think the questions come down to mentality, and then the guys that are sort of in the in-between space, because you had Mikkel Dessler shows up on the injury list as questionable. I wrote everybody seems to come back from international duty healthy. That's not 100% true, because Mircea Razuni sat out a match, one of his club matches for injury, but he doesn't show up in the injury list. He would not start on the night.
Yeah, and I saw quite a few people saying that they would rather the club prioritize the Open Cup. This is what it looks like sometimes. And so be careful what you wish for, I guess is what I'm saying. But yeah, Dessler was listed as questionable. Estevez confirmed in the post-game press conference that this was precautionary, that he would be ready to go on Wednesday, and they just weren't going to push him out in this one. It seems like the same thing was true for Zuni, that maybe had some kind of little nagging thing. He played a fair amount at the end of this game, but they weren't going to push it and risk anything for Wednesday. So there's some guys who probably could have been really helpful in this game that were sat because of the Open Cup, which is fine. I'm not criticizing that, but I'm just saying to fans, like, I guess, like, be careful what you wish for at times, because sometimes when you prioritize another game, you get the kind of game that we saw.
You get this. Yeah. I mean, what do you think? I hear that. Preference for prioritization, and it, at least in my perspective, it tends to be from like my more knowledgeable soccer friends who kind of understand what the U.S. Open Cup is and how it works. I mean, I was at the Longhorn game a week ago talking to somebody who's a casual fan, and they're like, I don't even understand, like, the U.S. Open Cup, what is that? It's actually a guy from England. And I was like, well, imagine like the
FA Cup.
Like the FA Cup, but but if it was played in the United States, he's like, whoa, I didn't even know they had such a thing. So do you feel like among the general public, like people understand that prioritization? And then if it was you, like what do you do?
I mean, I think there's of course a spectrum like there is with almost anything in life, but I do know quite a few people who like know what Austin FC is, know what MLS is, that do not know what the Open Cup is, which fair enough. As far as like what I would do, I mean, yeah, if guys are 100% healthy, I would say play your best 11 in Frisco and then maybe sub a guy early, do whatever. I think it is different when there's guys not 100% healthy, regardless of what the game is, even if it is just a league game. I think it might still be smart to leave Dessler off and just let him get some rest, heal up, and be ready for the next two games. Same with Uzuni coming back from all this travel. I know he didn't play in the games with Albania, but even just the travel and disrupting your schedule can still put you at risk for injury if you weren't 100% anyway. So I'm totally fine with leaving those guys off, but I think it did like send the message, whether that was intended or not, that like this isn't the one we're thinking about. And so, like I said before, Nico can say, "Hey, we got to work really hard. We got to come out and fight in this game because Dallas is going to want it," and they did. There's so many signals pointing towards like we're not actually taking this one as seriously as the one on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think that's super true, and that would play out, all throughout the night. So lineup wise, we kind of talked about who we didn't see. So we get Gallagher in for Dessler. So Baru, Heinzike, Svatak comes back. Gallagher, then we get Wolf Pereira and Dubasarski in the midfield. Obrian, Rubio, Bukhari up front. I think that's not surprising. It's basically the best 11 you have available among your healthy 11 players.
Yeah, I think when the lineup came out, the question was like, where are they going to be lined up? Because we saw a lot of these same players in the shorthanded roster last week, but in different positions, right? We had Gallagher on the left wing, Obrian at the 9, Rubio in the midfield. This time, because Gallagher has to drop back to right back with Dessler gone, you still have Rubio and Obrian that you can kind of shift around, plus Owen. I was like, okay, is it going to be Rubio in the midfield again with Owen wide left and Obrian up top? But what we ended up getting was Rubio at the 9, Obrian left wing, Owen in the midfield. Getting in, we can start off with match events pretty quickly here because the first one came very early, right? Dallas starts off with intensity, Austin doesn't, and they pay for it. They give up a goal in the second minute. So this one comes from a long ball from the goalkeeper to Logan Farrington, who's running into the box. Svatak gets there first, heads it back upfield, but our midfielders are outnumbered on that second ball. And so Musa picks up the ball, bullies Danny off of him, plays a 1-2 with Farrington, who plays a blind back heel into the box for Musa, and he's 1v1 with Stuver, and he's going to finish that 100% of the time because Stuver didn't even have a chance to step up off his line, so couldn't close the angle at all. He's just a sitting duck on his goal line right there. This is a good example of why focus and intensity matter so much. It's not about working really hard when you are immediately involved in the play. It's about being switched on the whole game and working really hard when you might be involved in the play, when there's a chance you could be involved in the play. If you rewind to the first long ball over the top, watch where the keeper is positioned in that moment. He's so high up the field. You probably don't want any player with the ball to be that high up the field with no pressure on them, much less the goalkeeper who's their furthest player back. Rubio probably should have been quicker to step to him and put some pressure on that ball. And then when Svatak wins the header, Danny is the only midfielder in position to win a second ball in that situation. And so once that ball goes over your head, you have to be aware of where the opposition is and make sure that you can compete for that second ball. And we had 4 guys on all sides of Danny Pereira. And essentially, Slotog's header would have had to fall right to him. Otherwise, nobody else was in position. So that ball goes over your head. You have to put yourself in position to win, or like give yourself a chance to challenge for that second ball. And we didn't do that. And so Farrington receives the ball. He starts moving away from goal. Again, nobody puts pressure on him there. And he's able to play that back heel completely unimpeded. So just look at each individual phase of this play. There's not any big mistakes, no huge errors, but there's way too many people thinking, well, this part of the play isn't going to matter much, so I'm going to let the next guy deal with it. But when 3 or 4 people do that in a row, it leads to your back line being pulled completely out of shape, nobody marking one of the best strikers in the league inside your 18-yard box, and him being kept onside like pretty needlessly by your left back, because he kind of, maybe he could have stepped a little bit different there, but he was left out to dry by the rest of the back line, who was left out to dry by the rest of the team in front of them. So the mentality has to be that every play matters. Even if a moment doesn't feel like it will matter, you have to treat it with the possibility that it might. And Austin didn't do that consistently throughout this game.
Which is a thing that I'm telling my JV offensive linemen to care about. Like, and it feels like there's something you shouldn't have to talk to professional soccer players about every match. And so this is the second shot on the night from Dallas. They would get 6 more in a row. So Dallas gets off 8 shots before Austin even gets off any kind of a chance. And it's a Jeremy Biedrou header in the 30th minute, which is saved.
Yeah, and that's on a set piece. We didn't even get that one out of moving the ball or getting them out of position. It was a nice ball that connected with them on a set piece. Jeremiah, do you think it would be worth talking about second balls? Is that a thing that is worth, I guess, explaining to maybe our listeners who are newer to the game?
I think it is, and I think it is like in the context of understanding when things go well or poorly for Austin seems to depend a lot on what's happening with second balls.
Yeah, so there's a couple of scenarios, and we saw both of them in this game, that are examples of why it's important to be in position for these. So when we say second ball, it's often a longer ball, a direct ball that's, let's say, on a goal kick, or just kind of a hopeful direct ball over the top, where the chance of one player winning it cleanly is very low. And so whenever you hear a coach yell second ball, you'll hear that in youth games a lot. What they mean is, okay, this ball's up in the air. There's not a high percentage chance of one person winning it. Put yourself in a position to win the rebound. That's why they call it the second ball. The first one was the hopeful one. The rebound is the second ball. Put yourself in a position to win that second ball. Danny Pereira and Nico Dubersarski were regularly out of position to win these. And so on this first goal, there's a ball over their head and they don't get into good position, or not enough people get into good position, I'll say, to win that second ball. There's another example later where I don't know if I think it's maybe a clearance up the field where it's just kind of, we're scrambling, just launch it and hopefully somebody can get on the end of it. Nobody does. Dallas recovers it on their back line and they play into a giant gap in our midfield and turn, and they're just attacking us again. And you see Danny Pereira and Nico Dubersarski still standing closer to our 18-yard box. Again, once that ball goes up the other direction, they have to push higher, take back some of that space to make it harder for them to play through the midfield there. And they weren't there. And so you relieve the pressure with the clearance, but you don't do yourself any favors by not taking any of that space back. You're just giving them the same space they had back again already.
Yeah, it's kind of endemic of the way the team played on the whole night. Do you have any other first half highlights that you want to talk about?
Nope.
To move to halftime. And I feel like the announcers and then some of the post-game commentary I read really wanted Nico to make subs at halftime, including Uzuni, and he held off a little bit. I honestly don't have a problem with it. With the way Austin played on the night, I don't know that subs would have made a difference, and feels like you're creating the opportunity for things to go wrong for people that you expect things from on Wednesday night if you go ahead and sub out at halftime. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so he ends up making some subs.
It's 63. You get Sabovich,
Yeah.
Taylor, and Uzuni.
The slightly tinged by the emotion of the moment, I wanted him to make subs immediately after the second goal, which comes in the 49th minute, more as like a way to send a message to say, hey guys, this isn't good enough. I'm going to put your butt on the bench if you're not going to change any of this. I understand why he didn't and why he made some of the subs he ended up making, which he kind of said in the post-game press conference was, we're looking at Wednesday at this point. I think one of the questions was like, why did Obrian stay on when he wasn't all that good? He didn't outright say this,
Very
but
good.
I think the answer was, we need Bukhari to start on Wednesday. Don't really care if Obrian can start on Wednesday, so we're going to leave him out there to play 90. And he, to his credit, he said there's a lot of guys who weren't very good. So if we wanted to take players off who were bad, we had our pick of the group pretty much.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Let's talk about the second goal. I'd hate to not give you the opportunity to really dive into this one too.
It's once again caused by a lack of awareness and intensity. So Austin keep the ball up in the attacking third for a little bit. I think it's a few set pieces back to back. One of them ends up being like a throw in. And Obrian gets a shot off, but kind of hits it into the grass pretty hard, and the keeper doesn't have any trouble with it. Keeper takes a few steps forward, launches the ball forward for Patrickson up the right side. He receives it, immediately plays the ball over the top for Kamungo to run onto, and he's 1v1 to beat Stuver. This is one of those, just the effort, the grit. It's not there. If you watch Austin's players, as that ball goes over the top, there's a lot of people jogging in the middle of the field. Dubersarsky and Pereira were the deeper guys on the set piece there. Pereira gets pulled wide to the initial ball. Dubersarsky is marking Musa on the near side of the field. And when the ball goes over the top, nobody follows Kamungo. There's 6 guys jogging, 0 guys sprinting in that part of the field. And again, when that ball goes over your head, you have to know where they are. And sometimes it's too late at that point even. And so like looking further back, like maybe Rubio can get in the way of the keeper and slow him down a second. But really, it's just the guys getting back to defend have to understand the situation there and sprint. And nobody was doing that.
Yeah, and that one was definitely the dagger of the goal, because like Austin was not very threatening in the first half, and Austin gets a fair amount of possession in the second half, takes like a speculative shots. We used to talk a lot about shots inside the box versus outside the box. Austin takes a very high percentage of the shots in this match from outside the box, and I think the total expected goal is 0.67, but that's like a bunch of like very, very small chances that eventually add up, because the other concept we've talked about is the value of higher percentage shots, and Lawson has basically none of those on the night.
Yeah, and a lot of this possession comes after that second goal. So it did not feel like a case of Austin taking control of the game. It was Dallas saying, we don't need to score anymore, so you have to beat us while we kind of bunker in now. And Austin could not do it.
Could not, no.
We almost get a third goal later on. Anderson Julio scores, but is deemed offside after the VAR check. This was extremely close, to the point where if I were a neutral looking at this VAR review, I would maybe say that they got it wrong and that Anderson Julio was not offside. And honestly, do you remember the El Paso Open Cup game? Very similar to this one, honestly, where players are not focused. They're not playing with intensity. El Paso go up 2-0 on Austin. I reached a point in the game where I was like, I hope they lose worse than this, because they clearly need to learn a lesson. I was almost a little disappointed that this third one got disallowed for that reason. And I think some people will maybe not be happy with me saying that, but they need a wake-up call, man. Like, that was not good enough. And at no point in the night did I ever think any of that was going to change. I think Uzuni comes on. What part of the game did he come on?
So Uzuni was part of that set of subs at 63.
Yeah, 60.
with
So
Taylor and
Sabovic,
yeah.
Taylor, Uzuni come on for Duversarski, Rubio, and Bukhari. Uzuni was running really hard and trying really hard, but it was too little too late, and it doesn't really matter if only 2 or 3 guys on the field are doing that. But man, I hope they're embarrassed about this game, because they should be.
Yeah, that my take on that goal was that goal goes in. I'm watching it at home, right? So that went in. It's 3-0. I found a college football game to switch to. I saw that it ended up not. I saw that the goal was allowed back and switched the game back on. But I was definitely ready to quit on that night, because I felt like there was nothing else I was going to learn from this club and this performance after that happened.
Yeah, we were talking about the schedule and like how crazy this game was. This game is extremely easy to cover, and there's not a lot of details that led into it going the way it did. It's pretty cut and dry that it was intensity, focus, effort. That's the main difference in what happened. And Nico Estevez in the post-game press conference said, well, actually, this transitions into our things we liked, things we didn't like, things we learned segment. You have things we liked, accountability from Nico and from the players. Nico comes in and just immediately says, this is my fault. I didn't have the guys ready. I take full responsibility. John Gallagher was asked about that when he came on to the digital press conference, and he said, that's very noble from Nico, but it's probably not true and probably unfair for him to take the blame for this one. And when you look at X's and O's, we've been critical of Nico for X's and O's kinds of things and seemingly not having the team prepared for certain things. It doesn't seem like any of that mattered in this one. There was not any obvious mismatches or misplays from Austin from a tactical standpoint. It was all effort. It was all quickness. It was all sharpness, and not quickness, speed of foot, but just speed of play. Dallas was one step ahead of them all night. And so I think, yeah, it is the coach's job. It's part of the coach's job to get his team up to play. But as far as the tactical side, I don't think any of that plays into this at all. It's 100% the mental part of it.
Yeah, and we've talked about in the past. I feel like when we criticize Nico, it's been he's been positive in situations where it didn't seem like anything went right, but he was really honest about this. Yeah, I like Gallagher's quote, says they came out and kicked us in the teeth the first few minutes. If you're not ready to go, that's what happened. We don't want to dwell on it because we have a big week, but yeah, it's just a team that super is willing to accept that, both from the coach, and it's good to see the players sort of defending the coach. Now, Brendan Hines, I think you got some of that in the presser today, sort of about them being focused on something different. And I think he was also fired up, just sort of in the general post game locker room reaction. So it was hard to find a thing that I liked about Saturday night's performance, but it feels like the response in the press conference from the coach and the players is the most positive thing to come out of it.
Yeah, I have one more thing I like, which is Stuver in the first half takes offense to a challenge that a Dallas player puts in on a teammate on a set piece or something. He chases, I think it was Urogide, their center back. Stuver chases him up the field and is yelling at him, shaking his finger at him, to where players are pulling him off, pushing him away. Ref comes up, gives him a yellow. I like protective Stuver. I love when he does that just for camaraderie purposes, but I also wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of psychology going on here of hey, we need a spark in this game. We need something to change and something to get this team going on a mental level. Maybe this can do it. I don't know if maybe I'm giving him too much credit there, but I could see a thing like that maybe helping. It didn't, but good try from Stuver anyway. But after that point, the whole stadium booed him anytime he touched the ball.
Oh, every time,
and
right?
So
yeah.
Sometimes it was a back pass that he's just playing around the back and they would boo him. But then whenever he would make a save, it sounded like we were at Q2 with everyone saying, Stu. What did we not like here, Jeremiah?
We kind of knew that he would probably be limited, but Rubio at the 9, I mean, I don't know what other options you have, but it's kind of not his fault, but that's just not something he's equipped to do these days, is to go out and spend 90 minutes as as a target player. And so I think that Austin's really suffering from having him in that space.
Yeah, especially in a game like this where when we did win a ball and needed to play out of pressure, Rubio is not the ideal player to have there. Like Vasquez, you can hit him in the chest with a ball and he can use size and strength to hold off defenders and wait for people to get up to his level. Uzuni can use like speed and just sheer tenacity to do similar things in those moments. Rubio, to be useful in those moments, you essentially have to play directly to his feet. And whenever you're kind of scrambling and just launching hopeful clearances upfield, that's not really an option, and it's not going to lead to that kind of pass very often. So, it was not well suited. There was also times when some of the only times we would kind of break through their defense, it would be Rubio dropping into the midfield. He would receive and play, like maybe switch the field and play off the other side. Then we have Bukhari wide right with the ball and no striker because Rubio's the one who dropped back and started the play. And so even when he was helpful, he was doing it in a place that was taking him out of the following play. And we didn't have guys filling in. We didn't have him getting back upfield quick enough to kind of be an option in the box there. So yeah, this is no shade at him. It's just, we didn't have the right kind of player for this game. And moments where, okay, we're not keeping the ball, they're pinning us back in the defensive half. Having an outlet can be very helpful, and we didn't really have that here.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add is like we talked about Austin having a lot of poor shots. I feel like a lot of that for me comes from like Bukhari and Owen Wolf not being able to create the magic that they have been over the last few matches and like creating the dangerous opportunities. Like we didn't get that out of either one of them on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think for both of them really, but for Bukhari, like I don't remember a moment where we got him on the ball in an advantageous position. Almost any ball he received, it was wide out to the right with a defender on him. No runs in the box, no real action on the backside. And so, sure, he could still try to take someone on 1v1 there, but to what end if there's nothing else happening offensively? So it would just be a waste of energy if there's nothing else happening away from the ball that's going to give him options as he goes past this guy. So I don't think he was great, but I also think they didn't put him in positions to succeed very often. I think kind of same for Owen. Like we just weren't able to keep the ball long enough. We weren't able to play cleanly out of the back long enough. Not to say he doesn't deserve any blame here, but those guys need some support. They need to be set up to be in positions to be able to make a difference. And it didn't happen very often. What else you got in this? I would say like a gesture at the whole game for things we didn't like.
Yeah, pretty much everything. It was hard to isolate those. I mean, we learned the trucks are safe despite the remodeling. It seemed like the Toyota Tundras were still in their position on, I guess, what is it, the north end?
Yeah, north end of the stadium.
Keeping watch over the game. Yeah.
I'll say what I learned is we've already talked about this, but this team maybe lacks a little bit of mental fortitude. This game wasn't quote unquote important, so they didn't treat it that way. I think like when you don't have Uzuni on the field, when you don't have Ilya on the field, when you don't have Dessler on the field, these are guys who set a tone with either vocal leadership or with the intensity and the level of the way that they play. When you take guys like that off the field, you need someone to step up and kind of fill that gap. And there's some guys who I think would be seen as leaders in their own ways. You had Rubio on the field here, Heinzike. Stuver, of course, is less involved just because he's far away from the play a lot of times. But I think it's a sign that like we either need guys to step up and become those kinds of leaders, or I'm imagining Rodolfo Borrell will be keen to bring in some guys to become leaders that aren't currently on the team right now and maybe take minutes away from the guys who aren't stepping up and becoming leaders.
Yeah, that would be completely fair for that to happen.
Anything else on this one, Jeremiah?
No, I think we've had enough of this one. We can put this one to bed and look forward to what's ahead this week.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and preview the Open Cup semifinal in Minnesota and then the home game against the Seattle Sounders. Hang tight.
Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by Sage Wilson Realty. This Sage Wilson team is made up of Austin experts who are client-focused and have over 30 years of combined real estate experience. And did I see Eric in the, like I saw him in the photos of the away travel. Was he at the game or did I make that up?
No, he was there. I talked to him in the stands, and my parents found him first. I think they have Moon Tower on the back of their shirt, so maybe that's how the conversation got started. But I saw my mom talking to him. I was like, oh, that's Eric. I'm going to go chat with him. But yeah, he was there.
Cool. Well, they're giving away tickets to an upcoming match. You can fill out the form in the show notes for your chance to win.
If you or someone you know or need Sage Real Estate advice in Austin, talk to our friends at Sage Wilson Realty. Be sure to check them out online at sagewilson.com.
And our premier sponsor is McGuire Woods Consulting, helping clients in the public affairs space from lobbying at the local, statewide, and federal levels to digital and communications campaigns across the country.
McGuire Woods Consulting has offices in 10 MLS cities, but only supports this podcast in Austin FC because we're going to win the US Open Cup semifinal and host the final at home at Q2 Stadium. Contact our friends at McGuire Woods Consulting at mwcllc.com for more information. All right, we are back. We have 2 matches to preview this week. Both of them kind of big, kind of important for different reasons, but both of them against teams who are quite good and are in pretty good runs of form at the moment as well.
Yes, this is not going to be an easy week. There's never an easy week for Austin FC, but this one seems particularly tough. So we'll start with the Wednesday night one. So this is the U.S. Open Cup semifinal. It's Wednesday night in St. Paul. For those, we talked about this a little bit earlier on, but if you're not familiar, this is the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup, longest running soccer tournament in the U.S., I believe. Started in 1914. I don't think it's been every year continuously since then, but it's been around for a long time. Really storied competition, so it's cool for Austin to be in the semifinals. This is one of those stats. This is the farthest that Austin has ever advanced in the history of this franchise in this cup, which is one of those great Austin PR things.
How did we get to this moment, and how did Minnesota get to this moment?
So Austin gets this moment by beating Houston 3-1 in the round of 16, and then beating San Jose. That was on the road, right? In PKs? It was 2-2 and then went to penalty kicks.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then Minnesota beats St. Louis 3-2, beat Chicago 3-1, both of those at home to get us to September 17th at home. And the winner of this one will play the winner of Tuesday's match between Nashville and Philadelphia. And that one, the West has home field advantage. So if Austin makes that final, Austin will be playing the final at home.
Yeah, so looking at Minnesota here, it seems like they're mostly pretty healthy right now. They did recently sell Tani Oluwaseyi, the Canadian international, who has been quite good for them this year. They haven't seemed to be missing him a ton so far because they have a bunch of guys who can kind of plug in, shift guys around to slightly different positions, and they seem to be fine doing that. So still have Kelvin Yeboah up top, Joaquin Pereira, who's been really good and I think has scored against Austin this year already. And then just some mean dudes throughout the rest of the field, especially on that back line, who are able to just slug matches out. There's some games where they come out and they play soccer and they'll beat you that way. But on games where it's maybe not their night for most of it, and we'll look at how they beat San Diego over the weekend, they had almost no shots for the first 70 minutes. They score 2 like in the 71st and the 74th minute, and the game just flips around. And so I think this is one of those moments where, talking about that mental fortitude, like Austin cannot slip. If they're going to win this game, they're going to have to be turned on, focused for the full 90 minutes and potentially longer than that, right? So Minnesota has proven that they can do that. Austin has to step up to that challenge and be able to match them on that level too.
Yeah, you talked about Yeboah. I was looking in the Cup, so he's their leading scorer with 3 goals. Austin's leading scorer in the U.S. Open Cup so far, Brandon Vasquez with 4. So probably not going to get a lot of contribution out of Brandon. So the goals are going to have to come from somewhere else. Feels like one that Austin's going to have to win a low scoring match. I can't expect that you want Austin to need more than like 2 goals on the night. Feels like stretching Austin's ability to perform away. Like I don't see any way that Austin wins this one in a shootout.
We kind of talked about this a little bit before. Nico said he expects Dessler to be ready. He expects Uzuni to be ready to go. Sabovic played a bit the other day. What do we think we're going to see as far as a starting 11 in this game? Because there's guys back, but it's also guys who have been out of the team for a little bit now. How much continuity do you try to roll with? Or do you just say we're going to throw our best 11 out there regardless of when the last time they started together was?
That's what I would do. I feel like this is one. I mean, if you're prioritizing the cup, you play your best 11. I think the question becomes, I think it's pretty clear in a lot of positions. I think the question becomes like, what do you do in the midfield? Do you roll Rubio back there and have Wolf put out a Rubio? Then what do you do? What do you do up top if you do that? I don't know. Where do you see them lining up?
I wouldn't mind them, and I think we have the bodies to do this now, going back to the Owen Wolf nominal left wing, because you'd think that maybe Ilya and or Sabovic would be able to start in the midfield. So you could do, say, Ilya, Danny, and Rubio in the midfield. Uzuni up top, Bukhari right wing, Owen left wing, but still playing kind of as a 10, floating inside, playing a bit more as a midfielder, and then with Biru overlapping, kind of getting involved there as well. That is what was working really well for a while. And so we have a lot of those guys back seemingly ready to go. Maybe we run that out. I could also see them potentially trying to use John Gallagher as that left wing again, because Minnesota plays with a back five. They'll push wing backs high in certain moments. Maybe having Gallagher be able to track back into that back line would be an asset there. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. But definitely want to see Uzuni. Definitely want to see Dessler. Definitely want to see. I mean, if Ilya is fully fit, maybe seeing him there just for the leadership and the composure. But Dubrsarski had kind of a poor game. Danny kind of had a poor game. We need someone in there to kind of to be glue and kind of hold that group together a bit better than what we saw the other night.
Yeah, maybe to your point about who Austin was missing. Maybe you get enough of those guys down on the field who are able to either through words or deeds inspire the rest of the team to like try hard. Those are some of those guys. Those are the ones you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else on the match itself, or should we talk about the watch party?
Let's talk about the watch party. I think we kind of covered the match. This is going to be the Los Verdes watch party at Chalmers Austin, which is 1700 East Cesar Chavez. Watch party start time at 6:30, kickoff at 7:30. Family-friendly event, on-site and street parking available, large screen, lots of seating. Food trucks out back. These are two interesting places, and also I feel like no matter what your thing is, you're probably getting your needs met here as an Austinite. So there's Discada if you want more Mexican, and there's Rolling Smoke Barbecue if you want barbecue, or you can do like what a lot of people probably do, get a little bit of both, mix it up.
Yeah, so if you're not going to Minnesota, which I think I was told that there's like 150-ish tickets sold, seems like they might be letting them take instruments as well. On a Wednesday night in Minneapolis, it's not the most raucous environment in that stadium. Even when it's full, they're not super loud. I could see Austin kind of bringing a lot of the atmosphere on the night in that stadium. So if you're going, report back, let us know how it was. If you're not and want to be with your fellow Verdes, then you can go to the watch party at Chalmers. All right, let's move on to the other preview here, Jeremiah, against the Seattle Sounders.
Okay, so the biggest thing now is this match was originally scheduled for Saturday night. It is on Sunday now because I argued with somebody about that last week. They hadn't updated their ticket in their Apple Wallet in a while, so they apologized to me afterwards. So this was on Sunday at 6 at home. Seattle's, again, pretty decent run of form, fourth in the West, 4 points ahead of Austin. I think they played one fewer game. So, I mean, this is one of those where you talked about the team hopefully looking ahead to what the potential of the future is as opposed to like hanging on. This is one of those at home you'd love to see the club come out and play aggressively and pick up some points.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Seattle's an interesting story because they have had stretches of the season where they were not that great. They're now being talked about. If you look at power rankings and just the kind of like vibes and opinion based coverage, people talk about Seattle as one of the big contenders. If you look at the table, they're not that far ahead of us. And I think that's partially to do with them. They've struggled with some injuries. They've struggled with just kind of consistency and keeping the winning going. But if you watched the Leagues Cup final against Miami, it did not look like a team who should be within touching distance of Austin FC right now. They look much better than that. And I think that's why people give them that kind of respect, is because they've seen what the potential looks like. And they have some guys coming back from injury, but it almost seems to not matter with Seattle, right? Like they're the ultimate next man up team. Whoever's injured, okay, we're going to put in this kid and he'll probably do okay now. And in 2 years, he's going to be one of the best midfielders in the league. Talking about Obed Vargas here. Paul Rothrock is a guy who's like probably not going to be a starter at the beginning of the season. They have some injuries and he just is playing out of his mind at times. He's a really, really annoying little player to play against, I'm sure, but very, very good. They just got so much quality, so much cohesion, so much consistency in so many ways across the field that, again, Austin, I don't want to take the Uzuni line of treating it like a final, but you have to treat every game as if it matters. And this is one that can matter a lot.
Yeah, I think, Seattle gets the benefit of the doubt a lot of times in these rankings because they've proven it year after year after year, right? They're kind of the model franchise. And to your point, the way they're able to build depth too, like is really impressive. So even on the night when they've got several guys that you've heard names of that probably won't be around, I don't think that that people will probably notice just from the quality of play on the field. So Austin's going to have to be on its best on the night at home to be able to pick this one up.
If you look at the rest of the standings, so we talked about previous weeks how nobody wanted to make the playoffs. A lot of those teams decided they wanted to make the playoffs this week. And so the other scores did not break Austin's way like they have. But beating a Seattle team could do a lot of good. And you're still dependent on on other matches, but any 3 points is going to be huge. I think for momentum, for mentality, for just the positive energy in the group, winning this one could be really, really big. And I mean, it's going to depend on Wednesday, what the Wednesday game looks like. So it's hard to say who's going to start, what the energy will be like, what the mood will be like. But hopefully they can either carry positive energy from Wednesday into this one, or if Wednesday doesn't go the way we want it to take some angry energy into it and say, okay, we're out of that one. We're full steam ahead with the MLS games, and we're going to prove that we belong to be in this top 5, top 6 positions in the West.
Yeah, and we've talked about that. I mean, Austin needs like 4 or 5 points probably on the year to for sure make the playoffs in any way possible. And so any 3 is a big 3. This 3 matters because of where everybody is in the table and the reputation of Seattle. And the fact that Seattle's got like a positive 10 goal differential, Austin's -5. Like this one feels like it could be a statement win if it goes Austin's way.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Anything else, Jeremiah?
No, I think let's go ahead and wrap it up.
All right. We'd like to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Come find us on the internet, wherever you are on the internet. Check out the Patreon. I got to try some new St. Blaine's products. My parents have become converts and my brother as well, and they've been ordering stuff. And so they had a new shipment in whenever I got there and got to try the jalapeno crisp or jalapeno crunch. I can't remember what it's called right now that Mike and Steph have raved about. I can confirm it is very, very good, especially on breakfast foods, but pretty much on anything. So check out St. Blaine's at either online or at their farmers market appearances. Thanks so much for listening. We will be back next week to review 2 games, Minnesota and Seattle, and then preview RSL away and cover any other Austin FC news that comes up. Until then, I'm Lennon Cottom.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Thank for nothing, see you never.
La gente.
Oh my God.
Zula Chupa Boom sauce.
Yeah.